Hi, my name's Colin, and today in Lucid Training Labs, we're talking about Business Process Model and Notation, or BPMN. We'll start with a high-level overview, then build one together complete with events, sequence flows, activities, gateways, pools, and swim lanes. By the end of this video, you'll understand the key components of BPMN and be able to create a basic one from scratch. Ever worked on a team where everyone had a different idea of how a task should be done? That confusion usually isn't anyone's fault. It happens when people picture the process in different ways. Flowcharts are great for visualizing simple sequences and basic decisions. But when processes get complex, multiple paths, overlapping tasks, or shared responsibilities, they can start to fall short. That's where BPMN comes in. BPMN uses globally standardized symbols to show the details flowcharts often can't, like what triggers each step, who's responsible, how decisions branch or merge, and whether steps happen in order or at the same time. The result? Clear communication, fewer assumptions, and a shared verifiable understanding of complex business processes. So how do we make one? Today, I'm going to be using Lucidchart. And you can too, for free actually. By clicking on the link, you can access Lucid's website, enter your email address, and have a free account in just a few seconds. That way, you can follow along with me and create your own BPMN in the future. All right, so to build a BPMN, we first need to understand its building blocks. And that starts with events. Events are things that happen during a process. They mark when something begins, when something shifts in the middle, or when everything wraps up. Every BPMN must include at least one start event and one end event. In a diagram, events are shown as circles. A start event is a circle with a single thin line. An intermediate event is a circle with a double line. And an end event is a circle with a thick, solid line. Think of events like markers on a map. You've got your starting point, your destination, and maybe a few stops along the way. They don't really do anything, they just mark what's happening. Let's see what this looks like by creating a BPMN of our own. We'll keep it simple, maybe something like ordering a drink from a vending machine. We'll add a start event and label it Customer Wants a Drink. Then we'll drag out an end event and label it Customer Receives Drink. Pretty easy, right? We won't add any intermediate events just yet, but remember, intermediate events happen during the process, marking a shift or a trigger within the flow. If nothing else, just remember these two rules about events. First, every BPMN has a start and an end event. And second, events aren't actions you perform, they just happen. Now that we know where a process begins and ends, the next step is showing the path between those points. And that's where sequence flows come in. Sequence flows show the order in which tasks, events, and decisions happen. Every BPMN has them, and in a diagram, they're shown as an arrow connecting everything together. Compare them to a route on a map. They guide you from start to finish, showing you exactly which way to go. Back to our vending machine example, this arrow directs the flow from our start event, Customer Wants a Drink, to our end event, Customer Receives a Drink. For now, we're just showing direction. Soon, we'll add the work that happens in between. To make sure you remember the key points about sequence flows, here are two rules to keep in mind. First, every BPMN must have at least one sequence flow. And second, sequence flows always show the direction of the process. Now that we have an established flow, let's talk about the steps that actually happen along the way. These are called activities or tasks. Activities are the work you do in a process, actions that move it forward. Unlike events which just happen, activities require effort from a person, a system, or another process. In a diagram, they're shown as rounded rectangles. Some BPMN use symbols to show a task type, but for basic BPMN, you don't need them. In our map analogy, activities are things like walking, driving, or turning at an intersection. Each of these requires action. They're the work you actually do to move the process forward. So in our vending machine BPMN, activities are the steps that need to be taken to get our drink. To get started, we'll add 3 activities to the board: insert money, select drink, and machine dispenses drink. Here are 2 rules to remember about activities. First, activities always represent the work that moves the process forward. And second, activities must be connected within the sequence flow. Now that we know the steps in a process, the next thing we want to think about is how we can direct the flow of activities as decisions are being made. Gateways show points where a process can branch, merge, or take different paths depending on conditions. They don't do any work themselves, they just direct the flow. In a diagram, they're shown as diamonds. Gateways can also use icons or symbols that provide additional detail to how paths behave. We won't cover all of them here, but the 3 most common types are exclusive, where only one path can be taken; inclusive, where one or more paths may continue, depending on conditions; and then parallel, where all paths are taken at the same time. Think of gateways like intersections on a map. Exclusive gateways let you take only one route, and inclusive gateways let more than one route continue if conditions allow. Parallel gateways are a bit different. They mean multiple paths happen simultaneously. You'll really only see them in more complex processes, but it's still good to know the concept. Let's add a gateway to our vending machine process. First, we'll place it after the select drink activity. Then we'll label it, is the drink in stock? Then we'll draw one path for no back to select drink and continue the yes path to machine dispenses drink. Since the vending machine can only answer yes or no, this is an exclusive gateway because only one path can be taken. This directs the flow, closes the loop, and keeps the process moving forward smoothly. Here are 2 rules to remember about gateways. Gateways always show a split or a merge of flows, and gateway symbols indicate how many paths may be taken. Now that we've covered process flows, steps, and decisions, there's one more piece that truly unlocks the business value of BPMN, and that's pools and swim lanes. Pools and swim lanes are essential for accountability and organizational clarity. They move your diagram from a nice picture to a tool for improvement. In basic BPMN, a pool represents the overall process you're modeling. It contains all your process elements. A swim lane is a subdivision of a pool that shows who or what is responsible for each step. In a diagram, a pool is a large rectangle, and the lanes inside are smaller rectangles. So returning to our vending machine example, first we'll draw our pool and swim lanes. We'll label the pool, ordering a drink from a vending machine, and we'll label the lanes, customer and vending machine. Next, let's move our events, activities, and gateways into the appropriate lanes. As we review the process, we might notice a few steps we missed. That's the beauty of swim lanes. They make gaps in responsibility obvious. So we'll add check money, notify customer drink is out of stock, and grab drink from dispenser. Finally, we'll make sure the sequence flows are clear and cross lanes neatly. And just like that, we have a BPMN that clearly shows the steps, and more importantly, who is responsible for each part of the process. A couple of rules to remember when working with pools and swim lanes. Pools represent the overall process you're modeling, and swim lanes show who or what is responsible for each step, and each lane should only have one role. Now, if we want to take our BPMN skills a step further, we can add more context. For example, we could mark the insert money activity as a manual task type with a hand icon to show it's a physical action. Or we could add an intermediate event with a timer to indicate a waiting period. Adding these details gives your diagrams more precision, helping teams understand processes faster and make better decisions. As you go deeper into BPMN, you'll encounter more symbols, rules, and advanced elements, but everything builds on the foundation we've covered today. Which brings us to the end of this video. where we've covered what BPMN is, why it's useful, and built a simple process step by step. To keep building your skills, check out the additional resources linked here. And thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.